Alright, everyone. Hello. Thanks for tuning in. This is the, I think, fifth episode now of, it's getting a bit better. Um, so today, I think the first question that I had here. Alright, this one here is from Felshade TV. Felshade, he asked, I'm not sure if you want me to post in your stream or not, but could you compare these two for me at some point? It's Evade who helped me with my build, but he is doing almost 10k more DPS than me, and I want to find out why. Is it stat difference, weapon DPS difference, using CDs at the wrong time, etc. Alright, so then he has a link to two logs here. Alright, so those two logs I pulled in here. I've already explained doing the compare thing, but I'll just do an example of that again real quick. Alright, so you have one log, the part that's right after reports, up until like if there's like a hash symbol or something like that. You copy that part of the URL, hit Control C, then over here, compare, click that little thing, the compare reports, compare with URL, and then you paste that in that little section there. Oh, hi, Mordrag. Yeah, I shaved my head. It's alright. Us balding people need to represent. Alright, so yeah, you just paste that in there. Click OK. Obviously, this would be, like, this is going to compare the same log to itself, because I didn't do a second URL, but, yeah, that, then you, like, select the fight, and if you go to selecting the fight again, then you're going to be able to compare the two things. But yeah, I already did that. So I have one of our better attempts, I think it was, on Conclave of the Chosen Mythic that we were working on last week on Wednesday, compared to Big Dumb Guild's kill, one of their kill logs for Conclave as well. And oh, Trita, thank you for following, as well as, I guess, a Miss Poodles96, Liger1821 also followed. Alright, so back to the log. Alright, so I have these two logs being compared, and then here in the actors part, I chose Felshade from the blue area, and then I'm comparing with Evade from the pink area. So like the blue is all one log, like all the sources from one log, and then like, the pink color is all the sources from another log. So doing that lets me pull in kind of like a split screen view, comparing the two logs. And I'm comparing the two demon hunters, Felshade and Evade, which is the one that he was looking at. So if you go to any type of thing like damage done, you'll be able to see like the breakdown, like the difference in breakdown between the two logs. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do when comparing these logs is trim the end of the log to a like roughly even point, just to like just to be able to see like fight length. These happened, like this wipe attempt versus this kill happened to be like roughly the same length, but that's just not a coincidence really. Like say if the kill was like 8 minutes or something like that, it's not going to do much good to compare like the cast of a 5-minute attempt versus an 8-minute kill. So I'm just going to choose a point on the graph. I'm just going to go like before people start dying, highlight all the way to the left. And so now that's going to look at the first, from where I just grabbed is from the pool up until 4 minutes and 42 seconds in the fight. So it's looking at the first 4 minutes and 42 seconds of both logs. So there should be roughly like an even number of casts between, I guess ability usage between the two logs. Felshade and I had already looked at this. I discussed it briefly with him in Discord, some of the stuff, but I'm going to go over some of the things that I noticed that I mentioned. First off, the lust timing being different. That's why there's two different sections of lust here. And honestly, that's a big thing of what this entire thing is going to come down to is a difference in strategy, where it's definitely in, I guess, Evade's favor for being like a melee DPS with their lust timing and such. But what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to switch the phases, because this is a multi-phase fight. If you don't know Conclave, you can choose the boss kill order. And so by going to phase 1, this is just going to show up until the first boss dies. It doesn't matter which boss the two groups choose. It's just going to be until the first boss dies. And you can see that with this little green line here and here. Felshade's log here actually kills the first boss a little bit quicker than Evade's when their Gonk aspect dies. Here, Gonk aspect dies. It's a minute and 2 seconds versus a minute and 7 seconds, so a 5-second difference. But just for consistency, I'm going to do that same trim thing that I did earlier, and I'm going to go to that minute and 2 second mark and just trim back. So this is looking at the first minute and 2 seconds of both logs. So again, should be roughly same number of casts on the first boss. So if you look here, he was concerned about his DPS, but like his actual damage is literally like the same. It's 1.71 million. So I'm gonna look at some like cooldown usage stuff, but apparently, you know, whatever he's doing for opener, any of that sort of stuff, all his effective damage is roughly even for that at least first minute. So that's a good track considering Evade, you know, is a really good demon hunter. I'm gonna click this buffs tab. And look at something like, all right, Metamorphosis, like 90% uptime, like 91 roughly versus 92. Basically the same. I-beam. They both have their battle potion of agility pre-pots going off. Both have augment runes, food buff, 70 haste versus 70 crit. So Evade is using crit food instead of the haste food. And they both have flasks as well. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty similar. I'm gonna go to the summary here. On the summary tab, you can see, like, you know, damage and damage done, damage taken, and all that sort of stuff as well. But what I say probably the biggest use for it is this is going to be where it shows stats, talents, traits, gear, that sort of stuff. So starting up here with stats, if we compare the two, you can see a very big agility difference, which could be related to total item level, or it could be trinkets. Like if one trinket has an agility base stat versus the other trinket. Like if it's an agility base stat with like a secondary stat proc, or on use or something, compared to like if Felshade had a trinket that had like a secondary stat base on it, and then it like procced or something was like an on use for agility. That would be a good sign of what indicate of like why that would be such a big difference. Like 750 roughly. 749, yes, difference in agility. Stamina is a good way to check for overall item level. Just at a glance, like you could also just go down and check their actual item level, 410 versus 412. But stamina does a good job at representing that as well, because no matter like what gear you have between like the two people, like when you add up all the item levels, like everything's gonna have stamina on it just about, minus trinkets. So that will be a way to compare people's item level as well. So crit, he is using a little bit less, or he does have a little bit less crit. Felshade has less crit, I should say, than evade, and has a bit more haste. Versatility is almost exactly the same, it's one difference, and then avoidance and speed doesn't really matter. Talent-wise, I know they're running the same talents. That's what he was trying to model his build on here. Traits. Alright. He does have the engineering helm. Both 3 Furious Glaives, 1 Chaotic Transformation, 1 Thirsting Blades, and Revolving Blades versus the Engineering. Okay. Pretty similar overall. I mean, just the Revolving Blades versus the Relational Normalization Gizmo. So looking at neck level, Felshades does have 2 higher neck levels. You can tell that because every level in the neck is 2 item levels on it. So at 409, that's 43 traits, and 405 that'd be 2 less than that, so 41 traits. For Azurite items, he has 415 helm and 415 chest, 400 shoulders versus all 415. So his traits will be a little bit stronger for any traits that the evade is getting out of his shoulder. Going down to trinkets. The Alchemist Stone, so yeah, that's an example of having a passive secondary stat with the that has an agility proc. Dice. Yeah, both of these are both agility, and the high item level ones as well, 420 and 415 versus just the, I guess, 410 agility item. So yeah, that's making up that base, that a big chunk of that agility difference. That's 433 plus 413, so 846 minus 394. So yeah, that's almost 500 agility difference just out of the trinkets. And then weapons. Alright, so he's using the 2 400 weapons, and he has the 420 main hand, so that's going to be a big difference. And he did mention that he wanted to look at like the I guess, the damage of like attacks because of Evade having the its 20 item level higher weapon. So I'm gonna go into that in a minute. And then enchants, they're sorry, 1 second. They are built differently. Gale Force striking in both, and so he's going with the haste from quick navigation versus deadly navigation, and then versatility and crit passive chance. So it's a little bit different. Alright, so I'm going to look into casts here for this first minute, just to see if I see anything that really stands out as being different. A lot more Fel rushes from Evade. That's like the trinket use, so that wouldn't show up over here. He does have the use of Metamorphosis here. Let's see where this actually. Right. Actually cast it at 5 seconds. I'm wondering if. Right. So his is a little bit later, using his meta at like 11. At IB, because that could be why. We'll go time. So yeah, slightly different. But again, it ends up averaging out to roughly the same amount of DPS. Alright, one of the things he wanted to look at was damage done from attacks. I'm gonna go to damage done, and then from all abilities here, I'm gonna switch this to just being melee. So I'm gonna look at melee swings. Oh, and yeah, Bunton. Demon Hunters are actually pretty fun. Again, that was my alt, and it was my alt, and like, for like Emerald Nightmare, and what was after that? Like Start of Nighthold when I play my Demon Hunter. But yeah, of the melee, melee DPS, that was definitely my favorite. But now I think Windwalker Monk might be, as that's really fun too. Alright, so again on melee, so I have this highlighting just looking at melee damage, just melee attack damage from the two players. Here I'm actually going to go to events now. So, like tables is what it like defaults to. Timelines, you can see like when they actually use abilities. Events is going to be like the just straight list. Now what I wanted to look at here was actually this is a little bit different. What are you doing? What's going on? Right. What I want to do here, like, for like, looking at like what buffs are up while doing an attack. I'm gonna try and actually pull this up from the single log. Normally it shows it a little bit different. Alright. So apparently when you have it on comparison, it doesn't show it the same as when looking at a single log. So this is the same exact thing that was open a second ago, like on this tab. The same thing here. But when you have it on a single log, you can just see on the right any of the buffs that are up at that time. Like at the time that an event happens. Now what you can do is when you go to filtering, you can filter to have things on or off by clicking like the things on this row. So like if I click on Battle Potion of Agility, this is only going to show stuff that has the Battle Potion of Agility in it. And see how it's like the green ring around it. And if I click it again, it's going to filter everything that does not have that on. So this is going to be no Battle Potion of Agility. And now you can have multiple of these going. Like if I wanted to basically look at like a melee swing with nothing up. I don't know, well, haste buff isn't gonna matter. Gotta go right chance on that. Yep. Of course. Crit buff. Any of the Harlan buffs, don't want any of that. Morphosis. Haste matter. Alright, so this is pretty much as close as I can get to looking at like something that has basically no buffs. I might be able to. Alright. So looking at this, actually that's kind of interesting that Alright, so this is showing, you know, like a regular melee attack from Felshade with like no buffs, nothing up, versus a regular melee attack from Evade with like nothing up. Now I believe this is actually going to show this isn't filtering like whether it's like main hand or the offhand swing, but I guess you can kind of judge by like the timing. With all the stuff filtered, there's not enough things to show. But like there's gonna be, like if I go over to here and put all this stuff back on for a second. If you look at like the, I guess the speed difference between like the two attacks, there's gonna be two that are really close to each other. Like basically like the 1 versus the almost at 1 second, then like 1.6, and you have like a gap. 3.9, 4.8, 5.2. Like, well, some of this is actually going to be affected by haste, but when it has like the two closer attacks together, that's a lot of times going to be like the main hand versus the offhand. but the bigger thing to be able to tell is going to be like damage difference. But what I wanted to show here is basically just like, I guess if you just look at like the difference between the two crits here, the 7927 versus 7655, that's probably as close as I'd be able to get to showing like what I guess the damage difference is going to be between the 400 weapon versus the 420 weapon. So, he's gaining roughly just short of 300 damage, 280 damage for like melee swing from having the extra 20 item levels. But if you look at total melee damage done between the two of them, it does end up still being the same. But again, that could just be, play difference of, exactly what abilities were used differently between those two areas. But again, that's just an example of how to show how to do that. Alright, so I'm going back now to basically when we first opened up this log of showing all phases, nothing cut down in time. What I wanted to show next is phase. I'll go phase 2. Alright, so if I click phase 2 here in this little section here where you can choose the phases, this is the part where the damage difference in the fight really starts changing. So both of the groups again end up pushing roughly at the same time. It's a 5-second difference. And I'm going to start dragging from there up until where Kimball dies in Evade's log at this green line. If I just filter to this area, this actually is even favoring Evade a little bit favoring Felshade a bit, because he has 5 extra seconds here. So I'm going to trim that out as well. So in this amount of time, they should be doing roughly the same amount of damage. Like there's going to be a little bit more downtime. You can see here, like this is probably for Felshade, like when the ad is actually. It's interesting because this should be when Evade. Yeah. So here I went back actually. So at the beginning of this this point right here, this timestamp is when Felshade killed Gonk, and over here is where Evade kills Gonk. So the next boss that both guilds are going to be killing here is going to be Kimball. So I'm going to look at just Kimball damage for a second. Alright, yeah. So if you look at Evade, from when basically Kimball is active, like he's already doing damage. Like as soon as Gonk dies, like he's already attacking Kimball. Whereas Felshade, from 102 until like 115, 16, something like that, he has like no damage at all into Kimball. So again, that could be strategy difference type thing. But yeah, that's definitely a difference here. I'm gonna look at all damage again. So again, during this section, yeah, I want to turn this down so it's when both logs could be attacking full time here. Alright, so from this point, like both logs could be attacking the same amount. But if you look at the difference here, this is where Felshade loses a lot of damage, 1.2 million versus like 1.6 million. and I'm gonna go to the replay here in a minute. But one thing here, I believe, is actually the lust timing. Felshade also has lust here as well, so it should be even like its damage should be even higher here from this point. So I'm gonna look at damage on the raptors. So if I go to all enemies, you can go to bosses to look at just bosses, or you can go to this one here is other like non-boss NPCs, or you could like choose like specifically like the ravenous stalkers of like like the first spawn, any of them that spawn in the first set. So this, if I were to click this one here, that would be grabbing like add 1, 2, 3, and 4. Clicking this 2 here would be grabbing 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. like that. You can do it by groups. But I'm just gonna go and do it the easy way of just grabbing all NPCs, since the only other NPC in this fight is the ravenous stalkers. So if you look at damage on the ads, they're on the ads roughly the same amount of time. Like Felshade starts actually damaging them a little bit earlier, but that's because in Felshade's log, like the ads spawned 5 seconds earlier, so they actually get on like from the raptors spawning to DPSing them in roughly the same amount of time. But Evade definitely does a lot more burst on them. Arrow down to this section. Right, so I'm just looking at the section basically when like the ads were up. The cast, see what's actually being used. There's like Vengeful Retreat, 3 Throw Glaives. Here's 3 Throw Glaives. He also has some Spell Rushes. So could be gap closing that Evade is doing a bit better to get over to the ads. Like maybe Felshade didn't have charges on his Spell Rush at the time or something. So that could be something that you would want to look at doing, is just making sure that before the ads spawn, you have pulled up charges for that. And I'm going to the replay in a minute, but want to glance at that. Yes. Might not show it right. When you go to look at buffs, sometimes, like if a buff was up 100% of the time, like if you have this, like the zoom set on a section, if the buff goes up before that section started and ends after that section, sometimes it doesn't even show it on the list. But here it does show like a new one starting here and a new one starting here, even though they probably had like metamorphosis for the majority of this section here. No, yeah, it is actually roughly where they ended up having it. Alright, so these little plus marks, like next to like any item on here, if you were to click one of those, it adds like a new section above the graph that highlights when that happened. Do that here. So this shows, this is like a filter. This is one way to add filters, I should say. Like here is Felshade is metamorphosis. See like little areas where he had it up. And I can do for the same thing for Evade. Oh, actually, alright. I forgot, that's a limitation of when you're doing compare logs. It only shows from the first log when you try to do adding filters like that. There's some weird things with filters where you can't do that when you're doing compare logs. That window though. All right. But I guess you can see here that just going from this when the line was right here, yeah, Metamorphosis was up near kind of like the end of this window for Felshade, whereas it was up for the majority of it for Evade. So he has a bit more burst on the ads during that. And that was from I-beaming. He has the I-beam timing. Alright, I'm gonna look at the replay and kind of in this section of the fight, 130 to 154. So roughly in this point of the fight. This replay here is just, again, I'm gonna pull it up in the other log as well, but the base log that this log was showing was Felshade's log, so things like the replay is just going to default to only showing this log. When I did like the compare thing, it added the information from Evade's log, but so if I go to Felshade, here's Felshade here. This raptor out here. Show us that time. Refresh this. He actually was fixated by one of the raptors there. So that could be, you know, a good reason for not using his cooldowns right there. Certainly makes sense. So he has the debuff right there. Mark of Prey or something like that. Yeah, Mark of Prey. So he does kite towards here it goes. So it shows the line going towards Felshade. So while he is fixated, he is still able to DPS some, so that's good. He isn't just running around doing nothing during that time. That raptor gets killed. Heading over here, do some damage to the other raptor. If they got too close there, they would have gotten buffed, which wouldn't be a good thing. But, right there. Bleeding did get hit, though. Oh wait, actually no, the bleeding wounds, that's the leap from the cat, that debuff, that's right. Going out. Raptors die. He gets Wrath. Kimball's Wrath. He spreads out. Alright, so that's going to be even another reason why his damage isn't that high in comparison to here, so he had to have some extra downtime by spreading out before being able to get back in attacking. Alright, so, with that, like, I guess just looking at this window of damage isn't a really good way to compare. Um, just because of, having not only being fixated, I can check and see if Blade was fixated during that time at all. I just go to debuffs. And phase 2. Yeah, he does not have, he doesn't get the debuff at all during that phase. He does get bleeding wounds, so he also did have Kimball's Wrath, so I guess to be fair, Evade does have to step out during that phase 2 section as well. Just not during the Raptors. Pretty sure that was after the Raptors died. Damage done on the Raptors. Yeah, so it was like yeah, he also does get the Kimball's Wrath like right here, but the Raptors were all already dead before he got even jumped on, so it wouldn't have affected him at all, really, for doing any damage to the Raptors there. So just looking at Raptor damage isn't really indicative of anything there. I'm gonna look at their replay real quick. Alright, so right here, again, that green mark is where boss dies, so that's when Zonk dies. So Fade, selected here. Symbol comes out, starts attacking right away. Yeah, they're clumped up over here because they have the Wrath happening. The Hacker's Wrath thing. So he's still attacking Kimball. The Raptors come out. Over on the near one, looks like Full Rush. Gets a little extra like cleave damage on the 2 on the boss, looks like, for a little bit there. That's when he needs to spread out. And right back on Kimball. And I believe they end up pushing Kimball faster. And the frog jumping around, not really doing anything. So then they head over and end up killing Kimball during that next cry. Or not cry, they cause the cry. So killing Kimball during Paku's Wrath. So we can basically judge that as being the time, like the time that it takes to get to Kimball's Wrath, to get to Paku's Wrath. And right here. Felshade's here. Kimball dies. He gets over on it right away. But then the whole raid has to go over here to Paku's because, again, our push, I guess, being differently timed, we still had to, like, Kimball came out, but the whole raid had to move away from him then. And that's kind of, I'll pause for a second, that's kind of unfortunate of where our Paku ended up landing. Like, if our Paku would have been on the right side, then Kimball would have been able to be pulled over a lot quicker, and like Melee would have been able to DPS faster. But since it was like the complete opposite side of the room, like Kimball got picked up, and then everyone had to run away to the opposite side of the room to make sure they were in the safe zone. and this was a section where he gets fixated, doing damage to the raptors, but he's, you know, kiting, so he has a lot of downtime during the section where he's not hitting Kimball or any raptors. So he runs out with a debuff. And back on the boss. Frog jumping around. Alright, and then again he has to do the same thing and run like opposite side of the room from where the boss is being tanked, like in this top left corner, all the way down to the south to get to the safe zone. I don't remember if we called it or not to like stop DPS on Kimball during that, so that we had the cry after. But that could be another reason that his damage on actually killing Kimball is lower there. Yeah, so that's, I guess, partially just, I would say for that second phase, it was the fact of getting fixated, having to, like the whole raid, just having to move to the opposite side of the room both times for the Paku's Wrath. Those are like the main things that are going to cause a lot of downtime. And I've always thought for like melee, the biggest difference in DPS is just maintaining high uptime. That's going to be like the #1 way to increase DPS, I think, in general. So maybe just look at where, when you need to use the fell rushes, when you can maybe do like a vengeful retreat instead to make up the difference, to be able to use to be able to still use like the fell rushes later. Yeah, just trying to, I guess, keep uptime, and I guess just for our overall, like, the actual, like, raid strategy is maybe if we keep, what's his name? Oh, well, I guess just whichever boss we're killing more in the middle of the room, so that we can start moving the boss towards the Paku's Wrath area sooner, so that isn't, like, last second the whole raid has to rush over there across the room and lose out on a lot of boss damage time. Like the range can still hit some, but like melee don't have much time doing that. And then I already know that I'd looked at this before, but going to phase 3 ends up being a really big damage difference, and that's just because of like the amount of time. So here it's the Kimball dies. Alright, so Evade's guild, they kill Paku here third, versus, for Felshade we were working on killing, Akunda. But again, it doesn't really make a difference because the same bosses are up, so we have the same mechanics happening at this point in the fight. This is when we actually narrowing this part. So this is an equal, I guess, damage section during here. But yeah, it's 987k versus 1.7 million. So in this phase 3, there's a very big difference. But again, they have the lust here. And then I also believe not have a mind wipe during this section. Let's look at damage done to that. both were cleaning up ads. Felshade was on the ads a lot longer. If you look at like Evade Spike, they probably killed off their raptors faster here, I'm guessing, overall. And then for Felshade, they had to DPS the ads a lot longer. But little blue graph is going further. Alright, so in that same section, if you look at casts, yeah, a lot more annihilation. Is more death sweep. Here's a big difference in throw glaives, 9 versus the 3. The fell rushes versus only the 1. He does use consume magic here, which is good. To get rid of the gifted winds buff off of the bosses or raptors. It definitely helps. Looking at Evade's damage, it looks like a big chunk of his damage. Like his DPS spikes a lot higher at this beginning spot. That's going to be like the extra damage on the ad. Look at just boss damage. Yeah, see, Felshade doesn't get even able to start attacking the bosses here until like 3 minutes in. He was probably on this last like Ravenous Stalker here, and then switch back to the boss. The unlusted, the damage from when he's able to get back on the boss up until like where they used lust, it's pretty similar. Not as far off, but yeah, it's, I think yeah, there's no wins or anything during that part, but yeah, I think that that difference of that beginning part of the damage here, like this whole beginning section where Felshade was not, for this whole first part here, not only is he not doing as much damage as Evade did to the Raptors, he also has like 0 boss damage during that, whereas it looks like Evade was, well, I know Evade was doing some damage to the Raptors and is also apparently cleaving some off of the boss, so he's probably hitting melee ones more, which isn't necessarily like a problem with Felshade or Evade. It could just be that for like the group, where the boss was positioned. Like if the boss is closer to a little bit closer to one of the sides and has like 2 of the raptors spawning near it, or at least one of the raptors spawning near it, maybe the melee could get on that one faster, and that's what happened with Evade. Whereas, like with Felshade, maybe there was no near melee raptor, and maybe that one happened to be the one that was DPS'd like earlier by like ranged or something, and then melee wouldn't have had as much uptime on it. Actually, another thing is at that whole beginning section, that's a reason why there's not as much raptor damage at all from Felshade, because you look at the debuffs, Cry of the Fallen was out. So for a big chunk of the beginning of this, I know just because of the strat, like we are stacked on the boss with Ring of Peace in the circle, so like melee aren't doing anything to the raptors during that. I guess you could like throw glaive them, but that's about it. He should have higher boss damage there if he was in that. That part I don't understand. I'll look at that. 245. See what was happening there. He's chasing a raptor like this whole time. Actually, wait, no, the cry damage is just the AoE damage from the boss dying. For a second, I was thinking that was the Paku's Wrath damage. This is the point where we're stacked up for the Paku's Wrath. These two are being pushed out by the Ring of Peace. Felshade's here, still just DPSing. Yeah, DPSing. What was Kimball at that point? And switched to Akunda when Kimball died. Alright, so yeah, we were like, Raid was stacked up down here, pushing the raptors out, then Akunda spawned, and that was like during the cry, so like as a melee he couldn't really get any damage onto Akunda at the start there either. Yeah, I guess it was partially just like a timing thing, partially I guess like just where the raid happened to be positioned beforehand, like as the ads were spawning and stuff. So again, just overall, I would say the biggest thing is going to be just making sure to have as much uptime on hitting things as possible, like the relevant things, either the boss or raptors. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and hop to the next section that I was going to talk about here. Next question here was from Elloells. How can I figure out my best gear as a Mistweaver? Raidbot only works for DPS. This is similar to, I guess, what she was asking me about, but alright. I'm gonna pull up a bunch of stuff here. I'm not gonna go through all of this, but I wanted to kind of explain how this is just stuff that I had looked up for Mistweaver. Alright, so one of the, I guess like useful sources of Mistweaver information is this teaching of the Red Crane spreadsheet. It pulls info from a couple sources, either logs or like, well, I guess it is pulling from logs, but it uses like the WoW Analyzer website. And I'll pull up an example of that in just a second here. But what it's going to be looking at is it's going to pull up like it's going to use like your stats, and if I have one open. Alright, this is an example from an opulence wipe, but just going to show what I was looking at here. Alright, so if you go to WoW Analyzer, it's going to ask you to put in a log. Once you do that, go ahead and do it. For opulence. Alright. So I'm just going to copy the URL and go to WoW Analyzer, paste it in. I'm going to choose you, or have you choose a player. Look at Elloells. Alright, now it's going to have a whole bunch of information. You can go through and look at this stuff. If you click on anything, it's going to expand on what it's saying here. Like some things like uses cooldowns. Part of that can be, things like revival could be not being used because of when it's been assigned and that sort of stuff. But some of the things you can look into. Then there's like suggestions. Then for character, you can show like all of your traits, your equipped gear, and then you can look at like a comparison, either DPS or HPS, depending on if you're looking at this from a DPS character or healer, for people with like similar kill times and stuff. And then this also shows it's like pulling information from like the top. Oh, yeah, it says right here. Looking at the top 100 logs, like the most common trinkets, talents, Azerite traits. So this is another useful way to look at this information if you don't want to pull it up from Warcraft logs directly. But down here at the bottom is what I was looking for. All right. So if you scroll down, in this details section here, going to player log data. It's showing up. I don't know why it's showing up all like this right now, but whatever. It has all the same information. Alright, but over here it's going to show like your intellect rating, critical strike rating. It's going to have like all of your stats. Then it's also going to show information related to certain spells and like your actual usage of them. So like the number of chi burst targets that were hit per cast of chi burst, for example, something like that. And this is going to be related to your actual log, is where it's getting all this information, whichever log you choose. Then it also is going to have like your like the number of casts of certain spells, like I guess not number of casts, but like I guess portion of casts, I believe this is, for things like renewing mist, enveloping mist, all that sort of stuff. So it gets all of this information, and it's all going to be put into the spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet is going to use values from it's going to use values from like static values from like the traits and that sort of stuff, and try to come up with suggestions for like what your character should be wearing or stuff like that. So if I go to the actual spreadsheet, like the this Teachings of the Crane thing here, if you go to peakofserenity.com, go to Mistweaver, it's right there, that's Teachings of Red Crane spreadsheet. And it has like links to how to get the spreadsheet. So at the very bottom here, it has a link to the spreadsheet. You just click that, and then click make a copy. But You can also click guide here. That's going to explain pretty much all the stuff that I'm explaining right now. So anyway, I did this for L, and pulled on some of this information. So what it's going to ask you to do, basically, once you get this, like once you have your own copy of the spreadsheet, it's going to ask you to get a log, and go to this section called previous logs, and you're going to first it's going to ask you to, I guess, go to what you can do it from either way, but so it's going to ask you to get like a log. So for example, we could use like this one here, like the URL here, and it's going to ask you to plug that into viability, like I said. Put that in viability, and then it's going to ask for this information over here that I was talking about, that player log data. So you basically just highlight it. To get slides. So there's this first whole like chunk here. Control C to copy, and then you go up to this first spot where it says like intellect rating, and Control V will paste it all in. You can do just paste values only. You don't want like the color to change, but it'll function the same either way, so it doesn't really matter. You do that in that first section. Do it again for the second section. Copy. Go over here now. Control V to paste. Alright, so now it has this information here. Once you have this section filled out, what it's going to do is copy this to this previous logs there. It's going to put this up in the information from that up in this green section. So now if you wanted to look at multiple logs, like a couple different fights, for example, like if you wanted to try and come up with a gear set that's best for your overall like healing, or if you're trying to look at something for your overall healing on like multiple encounters instead of just looking, like trying to gear or trade for just one specific fight, this would be a good way to do it. Or if you wanted to do it for a specific fight and like look at several of your like the better pulls or something, like say if it was opulence, if you wanted to look at like several good pulls of opulence, do this for each one of them and then paste that. You just copy this whole section up here, Control C, and then go down here, do like another log spot, Control V, paste value only again. Alright, so again, you just copy, paste, and then when you do paste, just click the paste values only thing. So you can keep adding more logs like that. But again, each time you fill this section out, that's what's making this section here. So if you wanted to add in multiple logs, you're gonna have to do that several times. So like you have to fill this out from the WoW Analyzer thing. So if we wanted to look at another pull, it's gonna have different information over here. So let's look at Conclave Wipe 16 randomly. So again, you go down here to this player log data. This is what it should normally look like. But select, copy it all. Here, paste, use only. Again, copy. Previous logs, and now it has the stuff from opulent attempt, or sorry, conclave attempt. So again, you can add as many fights as you want doing this, and like you don't have to do this every single time, but like if you wanted to just have like a variety of fights, that's gonna be how you do it. So once you have that set up, this setup results and tools tab is where you're going to basically do everything else. Here you choose like your race, your flask, food, chant, use the augment room, not talent. Once you have that filled out, you can choose the options. If you want to analyze from WoW Analyzer, which is just going to pull this information from the single log that you have in, or if you want to look at average from logs, which is going to basically average all of the logs that you had pulled in. Same thing with player stats. You can look from just the WoW Analyzer single log or previous log, so all of the previous stuff. The rest of the stuff, like haste, weight, trinkets, like that, pretty much all the rest of the stuff is how it is. So if you wanted to compare two different things, like say trinkets, this will have like a drop-down list of basically all the trinkets. Say Balefire. Right. So this is going to be like a ward of envelopment at item level 415 versus the Balefire branch at say, item level 410. This is going to be the value that you're getting from those, like HBS value that you'd be getting from those two trinkets. So from ward, you're going to be getting a lot more. And again, this is based off of exactly what you casted in those fights. So if you would have been using, obviously, like, say you had another trinket, but say if you had to choose between having just Ward of Envelopment or Balefire Branch, you'd be getting twice as much HPS out of the Ward of Envelopment. So it's obviously the better choice, going with the higher value item here. Now, for this part with traits, this is what you're going to want to use to kind of see what is going to be your best, what's going to be your best traits for like choosing an item. What I had Elle do was use the SimCraft add-on, Simulation Craft add-on, and paste like all of her gear here, like this blank sheet, so I could copy it. Once I had that, I just pasted it into SimCraft, just so that I have to do it again. I just pasted it into the top gear thing on SimCraft. Not that it would have, like if I go to sim here, or sorry, on RaidBots, if I were to actually try to just sim this here, it's just going to sim DPS, so it's not useful for what you're looking at for healing. But doing this is still useful as a healer, just because you can like play around with your traits here, like like selecting things, unselecting things, or just being able to easily see, like, hey, if I had this equipped, I could have like Compounded Souls, or that sort of stuff. So you can choose, kind of just like a nice way to make like a template of like your different gear, what you can mess around with, without having to like retrade it in game or like use like pen and paper or something like that. Right, so what I did here, you can specify like what trait item level you're getting, but we're just comparing to see like what you're gonna want ideally. I just set all of these to the max, so like all your gear is only gonna go up to 400. But the other stuff here, you can have it at 415. So I just set all of them up to the max, and it shows like what it increases. So like what is being like what value it increases. So like having Archive of the Titan increases like the value that you're getting from intellect by 2.8%. And that's basically what this is trying to break down and explain to you here. And then what that is doing to your HPS effect, and then this last column is how these are all ranked overall then. Right, so like Bonded Souls just completely blows everything else out of the water here. That's why it's ranked number 1. Like if you look at the value for it increasing haste and healing. This part, it's just showing the note on it says it just increases your haste by basically 10%. But for your HPS effect, overall, it increases by a lot. Now this is going to change a bit depending on the encounter and like your ability cast. So like, say if on your log you had 0 usage of Life Cocoon, Burst of Life trait is not going to be very useful at all. It's going to be really weak because you're going to have like 0 cast of Life Cocoon, and it's increasing Life Cocoon's value by 57%, but that is only going to increase your HPS effect by a small amount because you didn't cast it very often. So again, you have to kind of consider that when you're looking at like the ranks of stuff. That's what this spreadsheet does. This is over here in the top section, shows like your spell breakdown. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. The reason this is useful, like if you are trying to compare like 2 Azerite items, let's say we're gonna compare these 2, which one's better. If you look at Tidemother's cover, you can look at the intellect is 718. This one, well, it's 405 because of the extra Azerite empowered, but otherwise it would be also 718. So you don't have to actually put anything in intellect because you know they're going to be the exact same. But I think I actually did this. All right, so let's scratch that. Let's say we're comparing like these two different chests. They actually. All right, never mind. All right, let's say we're doing the shoulder. That's what I think I actually did here. This 385 only has 469 intellect, so you could put that up here. But I actually looked it up once because for 385 you would definitely have enough Azerite for the empowerment, so it's actually 390, and the 390 shoulder actually has 565 in, so that's why I put 565 there. Versus just a 415 only has 620. I mean, well, it does have 620, so put that there. Now you're gonna add up like the best combination of traits that you can get. So between meticulous scheming and burst of life, more. Burst of life, 345. Scheming in this case is only giving 59, so burst of life is going to be better. So open up a calculator or something, add 345. Now the other traits, for the first tier traits, look at Overflowing Mist versus Uplifted Spirit. Those is higher. Overflowing Mist, 402. Uplifted Spirit, 436. So adding these two together, forgot to mention. Alright, so yeah, for the 415, So say we're doing the so with a 415, we are actually looking at that one. So uplifted spirits versus life. All right, so now this other item, we're going to be looking at fight or flight. I think it actually has that one on the sheet. So let's just say we did. Now contemplate up with spirits. Up with 12, 436. Contemplate 745. Alright, so Alright, so Font of Life actually, we already saw that piece is actually going to be 390 once you have it equipped. Font of Life and Uplift Spirits. But again, the Font of Life is still worth more, just not them. Alright, so when you compare these two items now, the 415 is going to give a total, has a total item value of 2,043.8 versus the 385 as, or yeah, 385. I guess that's 5 item, 90 to be 2,006.13. Now one thing to keep in mind about this is these values, I believe that they're pulling up here, are only for the first trait. So things that stack, like if you're looking at like a second or a third trait of things, isn't going to work the same because the fact that like the second trait is going to be so say like Font of Life, if you already had one on another item, like the second Font of Life isn't going to be just or actually say Bonded Soul. Like a third Bonded Soul isn't as good as the second one because there's like a better, more likely chance that there would be a good chance that it's going to overheal, for example. So the first trait of Bonded Souls is a bit more than the second, and a lot more than the third. But anyway, that's an idea of how this spreadsheet works. You can also look at like trinket breakdowns. That's using the information from like your logs of how it's judging. Like if you look at the base item level for something for a trinket, then add 15 item levels, and then add 30 item levels. So it would be like basically looking at 385 400, 415. The raid drop trinket, for example. You can also look at mana trinkets, how much mana they would return. Races are basic thing. Weapon enchant. Alright, this one it's a little deceiving. The fact that it has Coastal Surge so high, it does heal for more, but Coastal Surge actually has a really high overhealing rate, which makes it not as good as either Versatile or Deadly as your main enchant, so it's actually recommended for Mistweavers to use Versatile or Deadly Navigation over Coastal Surge, because of how much of this is overhealing. Half that healing amount, which makes Versatile or Deadly better. For Mistweaver, at least. But back to this setup thing. So like I was talking about, how this is a little deceiving when you're looking at things with multiple traits. There's another website that I believe tries to get around this issue. I haven't looked too much into this website for Questionably Epic on how it's judging things. But like I pulled Elloells into here, and right that we use these that way. That. Alright, so now I'm going to try looking. Alright, yeah, best in bag. That's what I'm looking. Alright, so here, you can like put in. You click this little icon here. You can choose like an item. So say we had the when I did this originally, we had like I think I had looked at this combination of stuff, the Tide Mother's cover, Mistweaver's water, and Grong Elt Vest. I just put those into here. And then for best in bags, you can start adding items. Like it starts off with those ones equipped, but let's look at one of the other helms. Cowl of Righteous Resolve. Oh, 400 item level. Plus to add it. I think that says like a limit of like 3 items per like slot. So I would do crown. Yeah. Mr. Gladiator. Let's. Deathstalker. Just Testaments of Indomitable Will. Alright, so here I have comparing like 3 in each of these slots. I'm going to click the compare. Takes a few seconds here. And this website, by the way, I believe works for, right now, Resto Druids, Mistweavers, and Holy Paladin. Alright, so it did say that the chest is best, the helmet or shoulders are best. It actually says this this helm is better. Let's look at different. Yeah. I don't remember what she actually had equipped, but I think it was set up like this. Basically comparing these two like that. So it says that the cowl is better. Actually, it's using. Okay, yeah, never mind. Yeah. Alright. So it's comparing these two. It says this one's better at this neck level. It also has a way to like compare trinkets here. Yeah. And so this is another another option. I haven't looked into too much like how it what values it puts into like comparing the things. Like the spreadsheet, you can see like where it's getting all the information from this list. Here, I know that it uses the Red Crane spreadsheet like base, but I don't know all of the details of like I haven't looked through yet to see like all the details of exactly where it's getting information, like if it has a way to look at like second trait and third trait, but it seems like it might be because it might be valuing the bonded souls, the second bonded souls less, lower, which is what is making Cowl of Righteous Resolve end up being better. Whereas basically if it has bonded souls on it, it should be like if it was just going from this list, if it just had bonded souls on it, it's no matter what going to beat anything else out. So that's probably, I assume that's probably what it's doing then, but I'd have to look into it more to see why it's actually allowing that other home to rank is higher. But aside from that, just real quick, I wanted to point out so just pulling up like some other Mistweavers, you can kind of roughly like quickly see like some of their stats, like or not stats, but like their traits, talents again, for like different fights. And I just pulled up a few I was looking at it earlier. Either like Mistweavers that I knew, or like some of that were like all-stars that had pretty good rank. You know, size. You know, has very high ranks for healing on like all the encounters that he's done. Reach from limit. They don't have public parses, but they can also be another good log to like look at for like how he's gearing and such. But yeah, I can give you Elf. I can give you any of the links if you're interested in that stuff, or any of the names, I guess, that I had pulled up. I believe I had linked this to you earlier. This was the, I believe, is the guide. Where's that exactly? Oh yeah, that's right. For when you go to like I think it's the first page of the red grain guide thing. If you go to this link here, bottom. I don't remember where it is, but it has a link to the video guide, and I'd linked that to Elle already. That like a I don't know, like a 20-minute thing on how to like set up the spreadsheet. If you had any more questions on that, like why that stuff was being set up that way. Yeah. Right. Next question. All right, this is Baelreth. I'm actually gonna come back to this just because I know the next question. Short. Deals. Says, I don't know how much you know about Outlaw, but I was wondering if you could break down how reliably I could stick with Outlaw throughout the raid, because during Conclave I'm having massive issues trying to kill Raptors and keep up DPS. That and the fact that Assassination is much more reliable compared to Roll the Bone. Alright, so if I go to, I guess looking at statistics. Alright, so this is a little bit tricky. So if we're wanting to look at, like, I guess just comparing rogues, so if we want to just look at comparing like rogue, so Outlaw versus Assassination, sub is going to be lowest on just about all the fights right now, but choosing a percentile is going to be important here. But it's going to be hard to judge, because like if we go with max, Outlaw is probably going to have the max, but again, that's because, you know, depending on like the, you know, like just, and I was looking at anything at max, it's just going to be either, there's a good chance it's going to be like a padded log, not necessarily padded, but like the strategy might be specifically favorable to a certain like player, or it could just be, you know, extreme luck, which with rogue that's really gonna make a big difference, like getting, you know, 5-stack roll the bone on your kill attempt versus a 1-stack, or not one, but like, you know, 3 on your kill versus, you know, like a 5-stack kill, like all your trinkets and everything else. That's gonna make a big difference. And when you're looking at parses, that's, you know, it's looking at like the best parses. If you're looking at something like 95%, or not 95, but like 99%, and up, it's gonna be very high, high top end, but it's gonna be a really big range. So normally, normally I could say you could look at like 99 percentile if you're trying to look at like what the best rogues are doing or whatever. But I would definitely say for a spec that has a really big range, like with Outlaw, you might want to look at more like 90th or 95th percentile, which should start normalizing a little bit more. I still wouldn't ever go with like 50th percentile because this is going to have a lot of, I guess, more average players. And if you're trying to compare on like potential, you don't really want to just look at like average players. You do want to look at the higher end. So let's just go with like 90th percentile. Alright. So I'm gonna go through the fights doing this. So like champions, assassination is basically like single target burn. And assassination ends up going ahead. Strong, again, assassination a bit higher. Once we get to Jadefire, though, you can have a bit more cleave there. Outlaw ends up going up a bit ahead. Opulence, this one is going to really depend on the buffs, but there's just, I mean, just the AoE damage. Like, Blade Fury is going to be, yeah, just from hitting the ads, there's no way any of the other specs are even going to get close. Definitely favoring Outlaw on Opulence. Enclave. Here they're all actually pretty close. Now, if you want to look at the number of parses, though, that's going to be kind of telling. Like sub-rogues, well, they are pretty close. There's only 27 samples to go through them, like 27 parses. So it's kind of hard to get like a good gauge on it. Like, I mean, 27, you could have 27 logs that were all pretty good, but add another 27, they might all be, 5k DPS less or something. So once you get into like, 1,000 logs at least, you're having a larger sample size and it's going to be a bit more accurate at least. But assassination is more common, but Outlaw still reasonable. So even on Conclave, I think you could go either route. When we get to Rastakhan, Outlaw is a bit ahead here as well. There's a bit more cleave on Rastakhan. It also, I guess, depends on like your guild strategy. If you get sent down in the Death Realm, then Assassination I think is going to end up being better throughout the fight overall. But if you are allowed, like if you're going to be staying up top with like his melee and cleaving in phases 1 and 3, then I would say Outlaw is definitely going to be better. But if you're, single targeting a lot more of the fight, then Assassination would be better. When we get to Mechatork, here sub actually does pretty well, but again, 6 parses, so can't really say for sure, how well that is going to be on average. So again, looking at the damage here, just again another single target fight where Assassination is just ahead of Outlaw. Blockade. Here it's actually kind of interesting. For sub, they have 1 parse, so yeah, the single sub parse not going to tell you very much, either good or bad. But yeah, it's not going to be great for sub. But if you go looking at the number of parses again, there just are a lot more Assassination rogues in general. But it's weighted even more on this fight that there happens to be more Assassination if you compare it like to the other kills on other bosses. But Outlaw is still able to definitely do just as well, so I honestly think that either of these, like either spec would be viable. But then again, if you're trying to have consistent damage, like on pushing the boats and stuff, you might not want to go with Outlaw in that case. It might be better to be Assassination. But really, again, damage-wise, it's like, you know, if you go with Outlaw, you have the higher potential, but what your average is going to be, like, if, let's look at max. Yeah, like, the max is quite a bit bigger. And if you go to, like, this 50th percentile, where, you know, Roll the Bones is more normalized, I guess, and Assassination is going to be higher. 75th percentile, they're pretty much even. And then Jaina, well, Jaina doesn't really matter. There's not enough logs to really compare it here in either direction with 70 versus 30, but overall they appear to be pretty similar. If you look at like max, again, it's going to favor Outlaw. Almost any time you go to the max logs, probably just for almost every fight, if you look at max, Outlaw is going to be higher, just because it has a bigger range, like a max and min range. And if you look at every minimum, Outlaw is probably going to be the lowest as well. So that's why, like, with Rogue, choosing that percentile is really important to, I guess, to combat the Roll the Bones RNG. Alright, so that's about all I have on that one. Just, I think either is viable between Outlaw and Assassination. It really just comes down to right single target. Assassination's going to be better. AoE, Outlaw's going to be better. And Outlaw is going to have the potential to be higher than Assassination on most fights, but I guess Assassination is more consistent. So it depends on how valuable that is going to be to the raid, which consistency is good. Like for example, on, like you had mentioned here, on Raptors, you know, if you're not getting any procs, then doing your Raptor damage isn't going to be as high. And then, you know, if you are having high procs and like right as the Raptors are spawning, you might have a lot of damage on Raptors, a different pull. But that means like the rest of the raid is going to have to adjust to that slightly, like their DPS timings, or like even on the pull, like if you, you know, one pull versus the next, you do 30% more damage on like your opener on Gonk, then the raid might have to, you know, adjust their DPS. If you're doing, you know, 10k more DPS, it might, you know, the push timings might be slightly different. Questions I have real quick? Here, Obium's question. Where do baby mages come from? Probably I think probably most baby mages are going to be Blood Elves. Yeah, I think most mages are going to be Blood Elves, so I guess, you know, Sunreaver City, like, or Silvermoon City. Yeah, I guess probably where they come from. I don't know. Oh, Hog, thank you for the follow. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't really have a good answer for where do baby mages come from. Alright, Baelreth. I had mentioned Baelreth that I wanted to look at some of his logs, and He just wanted some help with DPS as a BM, and okay, yeah, I guess their house is right there. Baby mages come from mommy mages. Unless it's two daddies, then whichever daddy wants to be the mommy mage, I guess. I don't know. Alright. Clerk, oh, thank you for the follow. Alright, so for the BM stuff, alright, I want to pull up, trying to think of a good log that I'll be able to look at. I know Baelreth wanted to do a Mythic Plus with me, but I didn't see him ever on the same time that I was on to be able to run them. So I couldn't so we can't compare, at least this week, with like direct damage on like through a run of Mythic Plus or something. We're facing on champions. I don't think there's in on anything this week in the main raid. Alright, here we go, Conclave. Oh wait, no, alright, that's another bad example because I was marksman here. I'd have to look at somebody last week. Oh wait, no, actually no, this is gonna work. Alright, so let's look at Rustic on Heroic. I don't need to look at my own stuff for this. Right. I did the same thing with I did the same thing looking at whatchamacallit, looking at Xerxes' logs. So here phase 1 damage. Phase 1, trimming down the damage. The first thing I'm going to do is go to cast and look at timeline. So what we're looking at here is every third GCD being multi-shot. That's going to be really important for keeping up Beast Cleave throughout the fight. And that's going to be, that's like a crucial thing for doing good damage as BM on, well, especially 3 targets and up, but even on 2 targets, you want to keep it up. Want to keep it similar to that. All right, so before I go any further, so from 10 seconds to 16 seconds, about. I don't see any casts in here, so I want to check and see if he had like a debuff. Alright, so let's Ciele Purification through this time. Alright, so I can tell you right now that that's going to be a positioning issue. You want to be positioned in a way that, like, even if you get picked for a bad ability, like this, for example, Ciele, like where you're going to have to move, you're going to still be able to DPS during it. So I don't know if it's necessarily like a key binding issue that was like preventing you from attacking while you were moving here, or like, I want to go back to cast real quick. No, like if you had if there's like a disengage right here, I would think maybe you like disengaged away and then like you were out of range of the boss or something like that. But that isn't even the case here. So there definitely should have been attacks going on in this like 6 seconds. That's like a lot of downtime of not hitting the boss. So yeah, you just want to make sure that you're positioned in a place so that like if you were to get either like the meteor smash thing, I don't remember, the meteor leap or whatever it's called, that the one boss targets you with, that you are like able to either like turn around and disengage into melee, or that, like with the fire thing, you could either like disengage away from it, or have key bindings in such a way that you can, like, while you're moving, still be able to attack. Because especially as BM, like you can literally do every single ability in your spell book except dismiss pet while you're moving. Or I guess revive pet, but either way, like you can do basically everything moving. So there really should not be like any downtime, especially in this first minute. Like if you were to like solo the meteor leap, maybe you could have like a second of downtime, like while you're a second or two of downtime, like while you're moving away from like the boss, just to make sure it doesn't cleave anyone else. But that would be like the only exception. So see, like you have a pot here, so you missed your pre-pot, but barely. We could have pulled the boss early here or something, which actually I think we might have on this pull. I don't remember exactly now, but yeah, I just want to make sure you get the pre-pot. This is like, yeah, 0.1 seconds off of getting that, but just so you can get a second pot later. But for the opener, the barb shot. Trying to think of like the opener in my head. So I believe, look at your traits real quick. All right, yeah, so you have Primal Instinct. I thought so, but I was just making sure. All right, so with this, with Primal Instincts, like your opener is going to want to be Bestial Wrath, like before combat actually even starts. Especially on this fight, because you can start cleaving like right away. You would actually want it, like the best way to open on like AoE is going to be like Bestial Wrath, then Bestial Wrath, then Barb Shot is going to like make your pet charge into melee, so it'll have less downtime like running there. And then going into like multi-shot and Aspect of the Wild. So like, yeah, I would say Bestial Wrath, Barb Shot, which will charge your pet into melee, then multi-shot to start it, Beast Cleaving, and then Aspect of the Wild. And then you would have room for one more ability before you need to start multi-shotting again. Because as I mentioned, like you want to have multi-shot be every third ability. So like multi-shot, something something, multi-shot, something something. It's gonna be what you do the entire time if there's ever 3 targets that your pet can hit. No matter if it's weaving in cooldowns, anything else, that's gonna be crucial. If I go to buffs, I have to go to the side to see this, but here, alright, so like if you see like your downtime here on Beast Cleave, like you should be able to have 100 from like 1 second until this phase ends. Alright, technically not until it ends. Alright, so I'll say here there's still 2 targets. So at least this section of the fight, like from 1 second on to 46 seconds, you should have 100% uptime on Beast Cleave. If you're going for like, you know, to like optimize DPS. I guess like once you're down to 2 targets, there are situations where Kill Command has higher priority than Beast Cleave on 2 targets, but like the gap would be, you know, maximum like something like this. Like it'd be like 1 GCD difference. I'll pull up one of my own logs real quick. Alright, here we actually killed these first two mobs like almost the same exact time, but again, I'll just go to where the second one died. So for this section of the fight, I should have very close to 100% beast cleave uptime. Here's a log that we're both in, but I'll still use compared to your more recent logs. Yeah, so like during this window, that's the difference in me having 94% uptime versus your 47. Like having literally double that uptime is gonna make my pet do a huge more, huge amount of difference in DPS. We'll look at actual frenzy as well. Alright. Now this is the other thing to look at. Frenzy stacks on the pet. Alright, so we ended up killing the first two in my log here at this point, right at the end. So ideally, as much of this as possible, I wanted to make sure I had 3 stacks at. It looks like you actually did pretty good here, but well, for this one, but I'm not sure why you don't get a 3rd stack here. Like this, at some point, from like roughly 8 seconds until like 16 seconds, you should have been able to get another like barb shut off to. Actually, if I remember right, that's pretty much the window where like you weren't attacking, so that ended up costing a lot of DPS also. Like even if you would have just during like that 6 seconds of downtime, even if you would have just gotten like that one barb shot cast off, it would have kept your pet like cleaving at 3 stacks for a lot longer there. Like if you would have been able to get that and like a multi-shot off. Change the zoom and change this to all phase. Alright, so it looks like in the first phase it's alright to use up like a whole bunch of charges, because like when you drop out of the phase, that's going to give you a big window to regain all of your charges back of barb shot. But like the goal with barb shot is to, and frenzy stacks, is to like after you cast the first, well, make sure not to cast it until you have almost 2 charges, and then once you start casting it, you want to refresh it like as late as possible to keep it rolling. Like here it looks like you tried to refresh it. There's like a really small gap, probably here as well. But like make sure you have like a good tracker to be able to see that like when you need to cast it to be able to refresh it. And like that should be something that's visible, pretty easily visible here as well. So it looks like you're trying to do it, just it's not being like executed perfectly. So just make sure when you start casting like your first one, like here actually I can kind of tell, like you cast one here, and then your second one here, and your third one you do too early. If you would have waited on this one, which you definitely would have had enough time to wait a little bit longer, if you would have waited here, then you would have been able to refresh here again, and kept this 3 stack going, like all the way up, like a longer amount. And I go into mine. If you look at like my frenzy uptime, not only is the overall uptime like double, adjust total flight length. At 545. So this is like the same byte length, where I have like the 88% to like the 47% frenzy uptime, and my 3 stacks, like here I've 3 stacks for like almost, well, from when I cast the first one to the third one, which again I almost got a refresh here, and if I would have, that would have got to this 3 stack all the way to like here. Having like a huge chain of like just keeping it refreshed by just casting it as late as possible really makes a big difference on keeping those stacks rolling. But yeah, something I would definitely suggest something to track your Beast Cleave and Frenzy stacks better, your Frenzy uptime. I have a weak aura that I can give you, the one that I gave Zirhos. You said that helped her a ton, so hopefully it would do the same for you. But yeah, I would say that would be a big help with those. Those are like the 2 biggest issues that I see. Just going by the start here. And like I said, the opener for AoE was a little bit off. Let me go look at. Alright, so this looks like this is good. This is definitely a good thing that you're doing. You're making sure that when you do your Aspect of the Wild, you do have Bestial Wrath. You sync up with them. That's definitely something you would want to be doing. Gale Callers is a little bit tricky because it doesn't really line up perfectly with either case. Although, so this is a little weird, but like if you're doing Mythic Plus, Gale Callers, like if you're using the Rapid Reload trait that reduces like the cooldown, Gale Callers is going to be better because you can get, like if you're just saving Gale Callers to use with Aspect of the Wild, you can get it a lot closer to the 1 minute cooldown of Gale Callers. But like with raiding, you would probably, it'd be tough to do, but like if you could have Gale Callers macroed with like Aspect of the Wild, but still be able to do it at the halfway point. So like, for example, on pull you're going to do like Gale Callers, obviously along with Aspect and Bestial Wrath, and then you really want to do your second Gale Callers as soon as you can to when its cooldown is up, because then you're following, like even if it's not ideal, because then your following Gale Callers is going to line up again with Aspect of the Wild every time. So that's something a little bit more tricky to time and think about, but optimize your like every odd Gale Caller, so like your first, third, fifth Gale Callers should line up with Aspect of the Wilds, even if it makes your second Gale Callers, second and fourth Gale Callers weaker. Like overall average is going to be higher damage that way. And if there happens to be like a point of the fight where like you can't get a Gale Callers off, it would be alright to hold it, but not so much that you lose a use out of it. Don't have Gale Callers here on me right now in my log. Actually look at your uptime in it, because looking at this, alright, looks like here you were actually in your Gale Callers for like 7, 5. You're actually only getting like 60% of the value of Gale Callers here, from like standing in the buff. Here, get 5.5 seconds. Here, probably overall, yeah, like 5.5, 6 seconds. Last one is good, you get the full 10 seconds. I do have a weak aura that I could also give you for that. But just try to remember that like when you use Gale Callers, like the radius of it is actually pretty big. And in general, when you use Gale Callers, one thing that I'd recommend doing is don't stand in the middle of Gale Callers, like the circle that it drops. Stand on the edge of it, because like if you get targeted with something coming towards you, that gives you a place to move and still be able to stay in Gale Callers. So like say something, I don't know a good example here, but like say a frog was coming towards where you were standing. I guess that doesn't really target where you are, but say something's being dropped on your feet, basically, like a puddle, like alright, say Mythic plus the Orcall or whatever, the guy who drops like the fits the plagues, and Ataldazar drops like the green stuff, who is like the 3 totems or whatever. Can't think of his name, but anyway. If you're fighting like him, like when you use Gale Callers, you stand to one side of it, then like he spits like a, you know, like the green poison puddle on you, then you can hop over to the other side of it and still be in it. Or you can actually, with that, you could even use like 3 points, like stand in like a triangle, move to like the back, like stand in like the front left of it, get something tossed on you, move like the back, or like front right, and then something else gets tossed at you, move to like back middle, and you can have 100% uptime in the Gale Callers that way. Instead of if you're standing in the middle, it gets tossed on you and covers like almost the whole circle or something like that, then you would probably lose uptime. But yeah, like for example, in this log, like the uptime that you're getting of Gale Callers, like I would definitely recommend like another trinket over it, because you're not getting anywhere near the value that makes it so good. Especially the fact that like you ended up losing a use out of it. I'd have to technically look at the whole site. But yeah, you get actually 4 uses, even though this says 6, but it's just because of going in and out on that one. 1, 2, yeah, 3, 4. You have 4 uses in 6 minutes. Good. Math. So you were in your Gale Callers for 26 seconds total of the 6-minute fight. So out of a theoretical, I guess, we'll say just ignoring the last 6 seconds. So out of the 6 uses of it that you should have gotten, you should have been in it for like 60 seconds and you were in it for 26. So it's like 43% uptime of what you should have had. So that trinket is only like, I guess it has the passive stats as well, but the on use is you're only getting like 43% of the on use. So like a weaker passive trinket would be better. If there's a fight that has like a lot of movement like that. Well, in this case, it isn't a fight that has necessarily a lot of movement, but if there is a fight that has a lot of movement, Gale Callers isn't always the best. If you can't like guarantee that you're going to be able to stand in it. See something else. Alright, so I actually had you send me your SimCraft thing. Look at that. copy this. Braid pots. Going to top gear, and I'm just going to paste that whole chunk of stuff in top gear. All right. Okay, so I'm going to try and optimize your gear. Looks like you actually don't even have another trinket, at least, anymore, so that might be why you're using the color. So for Azurite, you don't have any other Azurite pieces at the moment. I don't know how much Titan Residium you have, but you could look at using that to get something else. The shoulders are really good, so I would not say to go to shoulders first. If you were to buy a piece, probably chest. I think the chest, might end up being your weakest piece. If you were to, well, I guess the chest is the biggest potential for an upgrade. The I think it's corrupted Hexer vestments. If you were to get that chest, it would be definitely a bigger increase over the Misfire Raiment. Because for BM, that's the best chest in raid or from Residium Vendor. Alright, so once I have this in here, I can click on like the different traits to choose like an ability. I don't know, like the engineering trait thing. Looking at them real quick. Alright. So now Serrated Jaws versus Haze of Rage. I'm gonna put them both, but I'm almost positive Haze of Rage is always gonna sim better. Overwhelming Power on that tier is always gonna sim better as well, so I'm not even gonna bother simming the other two. I'm not gonna bother with the defensive trait, but here I could be simming Serrated Jaws, but again, I know Primal Instincts is always gonna be better. And Haze of Rage, like I said, is gonna be good. I could. I'm not even gonna bother because I see how many other things I can sim along with this. But Haze of Rage is probably gonna be better than, well, definitely than Rapid Reload for single target, but it should be better than Meticulous Scheming as well. Here I'm actually going to put in Dire Consequences because that could be good. And Dance of Death, I think, actually will usually sim better than Serrated Jaws, but we can look at that. For these other traits, here, Earthlink and Blood Siphon aren't the greatest, so I think Heat is alright, but Heat is really overvalued in Sims, I think, because at least on multi-target, it's definitely overvalued because it only has a 3-yard proc, and a lot of the times, like, you're not going to cleave anything at 3 yards, so it's really just hitting single target still. But I can sim these other traits. Both of those, Gut Ripper and Unstable Flames, have chances of beating Heed My Call. Now here's something that, even though you're losing item levels, I think using this cloak is going to be better. So I am going to end up simming that with this ring in a moment, but again, I hit the item limit, so can't do that right now. Patchwork one boss. gem for stuff. Actually, also enchant. I'm not going to do anything with that right now. Be able to get the ring. Right. I guess it's at the legs. Should still be better, but I can still add it in. Just to see. Alright, so I'm going to run this here first. I will end up doing like multiple sims at the same time, but I just want to have this first one to come up with a good idea of what's going to end up being best first, and then I can run the other sims faster that way. I can get rid of a whole bunch of extra things, like I shouldn't need to sim all 4 engineering traits that I don't know necessarily how they rate against each other. Alright. So, click top gear. So everything's related to what's currently equipped. Alright. So based on what's currently equipped, single target at least, Dance of Death and Unstable Flames are going to be better than Heed and Rated Jaws. I had a feeling that was going to be, especially being crit gemmed and enchanted. That is going to make Unstable Flame stronger with Dance of Death. That's basically with Dance of Death, like you want to usually stack more crit so that it's getting like you have a higher chance of proccing that. And yeah, it's like starting off like with broad stuff that I want to check first for sims. I tried to do that first to get like a rough idea. I mean, you could pay more. Like I hire a raid bot subscription. I think I have the $3 a month one. But just doing this first to get an idea of roughly what I'm looking at. It looks like basically the only thing that's changing for like this whole top 1% of DPS is just stuff with like the chest for the most part, a little bit with the legs, but just switching the legs is like 0.3 loss, so that's probably not gonna be anything useful. But I think overall I'm just gonna leave chest stuff in and get rid of a whole bunch of other things. So I'm gonna go to run sim again. And I'm just going to actually, to make this easier, I'm just gonna repaste this this end that like resets any changes that he did, because I know all the other stuff was gonna be the same. I'm just gonna keep changes on the chest that I was looking at. Alright, but now I'm definitely gonna add in the chest and the ring. How many rings can we add in? Alright, let's look at all the rings. Alright, so I'm gonna do the same thing here in this again. Alright. So yeah, right now it is suggesting the ring swap. Compared to Whip, it's 1.4 DPS, 1.4% DPS gain, so it's definitely significant between the ring and between swapping the rings and using the trait different. Thing though that this other ring has been so close without even having a socket and being a lower item level. Like 395 ring. That's heavy crit and then mastery is almost better than the 405 with the socket. 405, I get that. That for especially for rings, like since it has no agility, a lot of that like there's barely a difference on rings and item level. It's like stats are much more important. Like what stat is on a ring is much more important than rings. But then when you add a socket is easily worth more than 15 item levels on a ring. So this is actually closer to like a 420 ring, which is still being like basically a 420 ring versus like a 395 ring. Ends up being like the same. That's interesting. But that's on single target. But so I'm gonna make sure to keep this in the Sims. This other ring, the cerulean ring. Now I'm gonna start doing some extra simming stuff. Right, so I'm gonna undo Rel's bib. Two rings. I keep this murky cerulean one in the seal. And then keep the changes on the chest just to look at all actually. I'm gonna look at how much like the damage is changing based on like that third trait. And stable flame. Keep pretty close in Gut Ripper. Like unstable flames is basically 0.2 higher than Gut Ripper. So it's the same as this, just swapping that trait. Yeah, it's still close enough that I still want to look at it when, especially when comparing it with AoE. So I'm gonna keep that in there. Alright. Before I go into looking at multi-target stuff, I'm gonna gem enchants and try simming these two. Basically, gemming and enchanting crit versus mastery. Just to see if anything shows up significant. Like it shows like a lot of like the mastery enchants beating it out, but I highly doubt it. First of all, especially single target, but also the fact that with Dance of Death, that pushes crit to be usually higher value than mastery. Same changes here. So now I have a single target, 3-target, and dungeon slice all running for the same gear set for mastery and crit gems. Now, one thing I want to mention with this, like the reason I do like simming with these like number of targets in like different situations, even if I'm just like looking at like one kind of gear set. Alright, so single target, that's obvious for like a single target fight, but it's also useful for I can get an idea, like if you're looking at, like say if there's like a multi-target fight, but then like you have like one random ad that spawns that you need to single target, I can get more of an idea of like a priority target type thing, like Stormwind blockade. Like there's ads that spawn that you need to kill, and you can still sim this as single target to see like what your damage is going to be. You have a better idea like what your damage is going to be on that ad. Usually I would actually switch toggle off Bloodlust and change the fight duration for like if I wanted to look like if I was really just focusing on that. But that's the idea behind it at least. Now 3 targets, the reason I choose that is because that's when you would definitely be prioritizing changing your rotation for BM. Like you would be doing multi-shots every 3rd cast. So like with another class, like say like your rotation changed at 2 targets, then I would do 2 target cleave at this case as like my other non-single target sim basically. So that's why I do 1 target and 3 target. And then I do dungeon slice, even not for dungeons, for raid, just because it kind of has like a an average of some single targeting, some AoE, so it's kind of more like the hectic cleave kind of situation. It kind of, I guess, get like a viewpoint of all the different, like look at, I guess, like they have a better idea of, like in each case, how things are going to sim against each other. In particular, like mastery versus crit for BM hunters. Like crit is always going to be better for single target, but mastery is always going to be better for AoE. But I wanted to see what the difference is going to be. Like, right here, just looking at enchants at 3 targets, it does switch to mastery as being better. But I wanted to see how much the difference was. Alright, so that's pretty much as small a difference as you get. Literally 1 DPS for the gem enchant, or for the ring enchants. So 1 target versus 3 target. So even though it says mastery here, it's very clear that crit is still better because it's, you know, double mastery. Yeah, 0.1 different if we were to do double mastery enchant. Double crit, so yeah, 24 DPS loss on single target to switch to mastery, but 1 DPS loss to switch to crit from mastery to 3 targets. So if once this comes up for the dungeon slice, which is like a mix of single and AoE, single target and AoE, I'm guessing it's going to overall suggest crit. But again, I kind of suspect that with Dance of Death. Usually crit is going to end up being your best stat. But as soon as, like, if he didn't have, like, if Dance of Death wasn't here, there's no doubt that Mastery would probably end up being, well, for 3 target, Mastery would definitely be much better. Significantly better. Oh. Yeah, doing the 1 agility gem should be better as well. Let me see where yeah, I would definitely say using the one agility gem. Yeah, and like a perspective with Dungeon Slay. Getting crit and chance is still better. So yeah, so I would definitely say, and here, like that one Mercury ring. Actually, still better. Oh, okay, that makes sense. The reason I didn't even think of that. Um, the reason the Seal of Zandalari Empire actually drops out of this, because before it was suggesting to do Steel and Murky. That's because it's actually simming these as being in Zandalar. When you do Mythic Plus by default, it just assumes you're not in Zandalar, so it doesn't use that bonus. So that's why it gets rid of the ring from the set bonus. But regardless, I think this is probably the best setup right here. To run with overall for single target and multi-target, but still have to do a couple things. All right. So the next thing that I want to look into, get rid of a few more things at the same time. Now I want to send the weapons. Alright, so Crow's Nest is like the crit scope. Deadly Navigation is the variation of that, which the navigations actually do work for like Hunter weapon. Didn't know that. Incendiary. These are going to be the most common ones that are going to have that are going to be more likely to be used. Incendiary, probably not as much even. It's probably going to be these out of these four Marksman or BM. Marksman usually almost is always just masterful, but BM, I find like any of these four can potentially be the best. But I'll put Incendiary in just because that's what we currently have, so we can compare it. Alright, so single target, suggesting Deadly Navigation or Crow. They're within 3 DPS. But I want to look more in the for the other ones. And then for rings, again, still just kind of switching around with that other ring. But it looks like after Deadly Navigation or Crow, Masterful 0.3 loss, Gale 0.4, Incendiary 0.5. But yeah, definitely just going from Incendiary to Crow, or Crow or Deadly Navigation. I think they're about the same. That's another like 0.5 DPS, 0.5%. But that could definitely change in AoE, because usually Masterful Navigation and Gale Callers are better in AoE. Or not Gale Callers, Gale Force Striking. However, I think, just like with the enchants, with Mastery being not as strong as crit enchants or gems at multi-target, when you're using Dance of Death, I think it's still gonna keep Deadly or Crow as first, with um, Gale Force Striking like being the competition. I don't think it's gonna suggest Masterful. Yeah, Crow's Nest is highest. Stays crit everywhere else, but it does go Crow's Nest, or with, well, and stays with Crow's Nest. Cool. But then again, actually, if you compare to using a crit gem, it's 2 DPS difference. So I would still just stick with a crit gem because crit is better for single target. 35, 682, or actually 12 DPS. 35, 692. I would still stick with it. Stick with staying crit enchanted, or gemmed enchanted. And here, crows versus deadly. Even though this one's deadly, this one's crows because they're so close to each other. It doesn't make too much of a difference. Gale, however, does start to catch up. Like before, compared to in single target, like it's a 0.4 loss to use Gale Caller, or sorry, Gale Force Striking. Even keeping the, I guess not even counting that. Just, yeah, if you're using the crit gem and Gale Force Striking, it's only 0.1 DPS loss. 0.1%. Just because I haven't looked at it at the case. Here, where? Oh, these things are finishing up real quick with them. Anyone else have any question? Anything? If you do have any questions, you can right now, just because we'd be answering a quick question probably if you had it in chat. But otherwise, if you want to submit something for like either a log review or uh, anything like a longer question, you can click that link, and it will take you to the little form. Just a little box. Type something in, and it gets emailed to me. Like name and all that sort of stuff is optional, but obviously, if it's like a log, it would be useful to know who you are. Oh, okay, that's no problem. I haven't done it yet, but I hadn't even thought about this before until Baelreth mentioned to me that he was gonna go watch them, and then I went back and I was like, oh yeah, those get deleted. So I might be uploading them to YouTube. I'll have to look into that. I know I've uploaded like stuff from Twitch to YouTube before, and I know like my YouTube thing, like I can do longer than 15-minute videos, but I don't know that I can do 2-hour videos. Yeah, my VODs get deleted after 2 weeks because actually I know I don't know if all partners have like, I don't know what their limit is, if it's like 60 days or something. I'm not exactly sure. But I know as affiliate, like the VODs get deleted after 2 weeks in Twitch. But anyway, like with YouTube, I'm gonna see if I can get it uploaded to YouTube. I see like if it'll let me export it, but I don't know what the limit is, like the time limit is for doing that. So I don't know if it'll work or not. If not, I might try to do like a local recording while I stream this, so that then I can upload it to YouTube after, so people can check out anything that they missed more than 2 weeks ago. Yeah, see, that's like breaking them up is what I would probably do. Like if it doesn't, like, depending on what the YouTube limit is. But for like the default thing for like Twitch, it lets you like export the whole video to YouTube. And I don't know if like what the limit is like with doing that, so I don't know if it'll let me. But like if I locally record it, like while as I'm streaming, then I can just upload my own recording. So yeah, this is the other single target sim that I did that added in case gems and enchants. I mean, overall it's still pretty close to like the crit enchants. Not as good though, and as it went on to like multiple targets, I think it's gonna end up getting lower. But alright, so here's 3 target. Or sorry, dungeon slice. So here mastery actually does come ahead now compared to single target, 3 target, dungeon slice. Now dungeon slice does pull ahead. It does go back to the crit gem, so it is closer to the single target, I guess, setup. Again, it does change the ring out just because it assumes that you don't have the UP set bonus. But again, even on the dungeon slice thing, the like going crit enchants basically identical. So overall, I still think this setup is going to end up being the best. Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I tend to hold on to stuff, for sure, for like any of my Azurite pieces until I know for sure that I'm not going to use it. Like, basically until I get like another piece that's um, higher item level of the same piece. That's basically the only time I'll end up scrapping something. Otherwise, I just hold on to it. Um, I guess with the exception of like if it's right before raid and I have like enough to scrap to get like another 415 like Residium piece or something like that. Aside from that, I just hold on to stuff because it's not like it's gonna go down in value. Like, you know, we scrap it later. But yeah, I think it's just worth holding on to it to have options. Oh, that's something I didn't get into. All right. So like while I was simming, like, undo. All right. So while I was simming, simming like this for 1, 3, and Dungeon Slice, with like if you're actually simming for like Mythic Plus in Dungeon Slice, like the traits are going to be very different. All this other stuff real quick. I'll just keep Crow's Nest because it's going to be Crow's Nest or Deadly. Alright, so now the traits, though. Rapid Reload is an enormous gain in Mythic Plus, and I'll show you how much of a difference it is to have one of these traits. Like, I'm pretty sure it would be worth using like a 370 Azurite piece with Rapid Reload over like a 400 with all your other traits, just because of how much of a DPS difference it can be. Especially depending on the dungeon, like Temple Setherless. Like you can hit like, depending on how, I guess it also depends on like how your tank's full, but the more packs, like larger packs that like your tank's full, like you reset the cooldown a lot. So it's worth, I definitely think for any of the hunters, it's worth keeping like an extra Azurite piece for BM just that has rapid reload for Mythic Plus. I mean, otherwise you're going to just spend a fortune, like if you have to like retrait all the time. I guess it's not that bad, like for us, because like we raid 2 days, and then like after Tuesday, or sorry, after Wednesday, you could like switch to rapid reload and use that for the rest of the week. But it'd be better if this hunter went demon hunter, that way he can be a hero class. Does it stack? Rapid reload does not, well, it stacks like the damage that it does from like actual rapid reload, but it doesn't stack the cooldown reduction, which is like where all of its value comes in. So it's not worth having more than one now. Ideally for Mythic Plus, it also, it's also better to have, like, it's even stronger if you have Primal Instinct. So like ideally for Mythic Plus, if you could do like 3 Primal Instinct, a rapid reload, and then after that the next best trait's probably Haze of Rage. So yeah, like 3 Primal Instinct, I guess in order of usefulness, having like a rapid reload and then as many Primal Instincts as possible, at least one. But if you could have 3, great. And then like Haze of Rage would be the next best thing. That would be like ideal. Alright, so here it does suggest using it for your shoulders to get rid of, I think that was a Haze of Rage that was there before. But let's find where just switches out having the rapid reload. Oh, Kadarian, thank you for the sub. I do appreciate that. Very much. Alright, you can totally make fun of Bael now. I'm just kidding. Alright, well, not just kidding. Do whatever you want, but... Oh, I didn't know that was easy. Alright, well, even still, you can totally make fun of Bael then. You have all the rights that you want. Alright, looks like here is the first point where it drops rapid reload. We're just switching the shoulders to get Haze of Rage, which would be the next closest. Like I said, Haze is actually still a really good trait. But yeah, it's 2.2% DPS just by going rapid reload versus Haze. And like if you compare 2.2% to like all the other changes we were doing before that are like 3 DPS and 14 DPS, or like 0.1%, 0.5% like max, like 2.2% is huge. That's like gaining 15 item levels on your weapon or something like that. So it's really big. And like as your gear gets better, like if you had like more primal instincts and stuff, that is even more. Like for me, I think I can sim it right now. For myself, yeah, like I switch between 415 shoulders to 405 shoulders, just because I keep this one for Mythic Plus. Oh, alright, now we have a battle here. Bael and I guess you can fight back as much as you want. Thank you for the sub. Yeah, with the traits that stack and don't stack, pretty much anything that has like a damage component, like the numbers will like always stack. Like for example, feeding frenzy, like says, you know, do whatever damage over time. So that part will stack. But then like any extra parts of traits, things that say like, even not for just DM Hunter, but for like any class that says like reduces the cooldown by any amount, like those don't ever stack. It's just like the number that scales, so like primary stats that you get or damage or something like that. That part of it stacks. Right. So yeah, it's again like 2.3% to lose 10 item levels. It's still worth, you know, that much more. I guess 2.3%. Even though I'm losing 10 item levels, I'm gaining a lot of overall DPS. And that's only, again, with just 2 primal instincts. If I had another one, it would be even more. But I don't have a piece that has that yet. Alright, well... Alright, so I think that's gonna be it for tonight. I actually went a little bit longer than before. 3 hours today. I think I'm actually starting next week, going to be starting at 8 o'clock instead. But that'll be like right at 8 o'clock instead of like the 7 to 7:15 time. I'll probably start the stream up at like 7:50, 7:45 and have the actual start of it start at 8 and use that as a new time. So it'll be consistent of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday streams are at 8. Tuesday and Wednesday being raid, our mythic raid progression stuff, and then Monday being this stream. That's 8 Eastern. But yes, you have, again, any questions for anything? Feel free. If you want to comment on any of these topics that you see here or anything else that you can think of that you want me to cover, feel free. Yeah, Felshade, I did cover that earlier. Actually, I think that was the very first thing that I looked at. So if you go to the VOD, it should be near the beginning. But yeah, again, if you have any questions about any of this stuff or anything else you can think of that you want to see me talk about, go into, feel free to add that. But yeah, have a good night, everyone. Again, thank you for following. Thanks for the subs. I do appreciate it. And I will catch you all next week or tomorrow if you want to watch rating. But it won't be BM rating. It'll be marksman rating. Alright, for at least for progression. Alright. Have a good night.